Okay, let's talk for a minute about the lessons that I've learned over the years, being a coach, being an athlete, being a parent, being a trainer through this world that we live in now of travel sports. And that is, we get so many messages over the course of a weekend, just wonderful feedback and incredible videos from youth tournaments all the way up through like professional level. And it's always the things that the parents proud of. They don't send me messages most of the time of their kids failing. And I want to say there's a couple of different things that I'd like to say for feedback on this. And that is like, there's the faith stuff and there's the fear stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of times we're not aware that we're communicating the fear stuff as much as we are. And it sounds kind of like the faith stuff, but what your kids are hearing or what your athletes are hearing a lot of time is the fear stuff. And it's because most of the time, that's where a lot of us are coming from, because we're still so involved. It's not that we're living vicariously through the student athlete as much as it is we want the best for them, and we're trying to provide the best for them, and we're trying to show up as best we can, and we mean well for them. We don't realize that we're jumping in there and kind of taking the test for them a lot, that we're giving them the answers instead of letting them figure it out for themselves and letting them go through the process themselves. So I just want to show like one side versus another, that there's so many different things that are just really easy perspective changes that can be useful. I'm sorry that the heater kicked on, but it is freezing cold here. So first of all, let's look at one side versus another. And it's not that there's a good or a bad, there's just a time for this and there's a time for that. And there's more of this and then there should be even more of that. And that is like, you've got scarcity on one side and abundance on another. Now, obviously, scarcity at times doesn't have to be a bad thing. Abundance at times isn't always a good thing, right? If I have an abundance of fat, is that good? Probably not, right? If I have a scarcity of protein, but I'm trying to break down things, is that good? Probably not. Like, there's a lot of give and take in the world where we need to find a balance. And so what we're going to look at here is scarcity. On the scarcity side, number one, fear is a huge driver here for scarcity. It's fear of so many different things. A lot of them aren't even real. Like we fear more in our mind and we suffer more in our mind than we do in reality. I forget who it was that said that. It was some stoic back in who knows when, but it's the truth. How many times have you found yourself pushing fear on somebody else, right? Like you in creating this paranoia, and it's not helpful. And again, we mean well. This isn't to blame anybody. This is just to point things out so that you can move forward and do better. Create a more sustainable, progressive curve, and also have more fun while you're doing it. You as well, as the coach, as the parent, the trainer, not just the athlete too, but everybody all together. The opposite side of fear is faith. Faith is something that's going to be more enduring, it's going to be more sustainable, it's going to be more progressive. There is a time for fear though, right? If you're in the wild and there's a mountain lion coming at you, like that one that they recently just shot with a bow out in Colorado, that was 200 pounds, you should be scared. You better be scared. And it better amp up the adrenaline and get you into action. Fight or flight or freeze or whatever it is. But it needs to be at a level temporarily, just for a short term, a micro dose of that. So boom, you can show up and do what needs to be done. But if you live in a constant state of fear, a constant state of panic, that is not good. And I see so many people do this. I see young parents do this all the time. You see young coaches do this. You see young athletes do this. And it's kind of a learned behavior. We've seen this from other people, and it seems like this kept them safe, or this is what was taught to me, even if it wasn't verbally, but it was through like the actions of my coach, my parent, other athletes, another trainer. You got finite stuff on the scarcity side and the fear side. Finite, right? You're competing for this one match. You're competing for this one tournament. You're competing for this one game. For this one season. Versus The infinite game, right? Like Simon Sinek talks about. The infinite game means I love running, so I'm going to run. I'm not done after this race. I'm not done after this season. I'm not done after this year. I'm never done because I love the race. Now, there's a time and a place to focus on the finite, right? You're trying to win a championship. And then there's a time and place to focus, and most of the time and place, on the infinite. The infinite game is going to be one where it's very difficult to lose. Very difficult to beat somebody with an infinite timeline. Why? Because I'm not done yet, baby. I'm here because I love it. Let's go back to that other side again. There's separation and isolation as it relates to scarcity. You feel like you're by yourself. That's not usually empowering for most people. When you feel like you're alone, you often feel like you've got to be defensive, right? You've got to be like aggressive sometimes. And that sounds different than offensive, but it's not. It's just a little bit of a different twist. But like on the other side, where you've got faith in abundance, you have connection. You have community. You have we will go farther than me. And the we that you get to see when there's a team sport is something like last night and this morning, where we had an athlete showing up whose season was over and he was showing up for his teammate. That is freaking phenomenal. That's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to actually teach here. That's what everybody wants to teach here. There is time for a me though, right? There is time for me in we. And there's gotta be a focus on each. And there has to be recognition or a counterbalance of each. The next thing that's gonna be on the scarcity side is failure. The F word, the biggest F word of all, failure, right? What's on the other side of failure in abundance? Growth. Wait a second. Kind of sounds like it could be the same. How many times have you heard people say growth is often painful, right? You're going through growing pains. Is it joyful or painful? Well, it could be painful and joyful, right? Who doesn't want to be taller? I've never heard somebody say, I wish I could be shorter, except for the older athlete that was like 7 foot something and says, man, my body's beating me up. Gravity is pulling me down, right? But like growth is not failure, but it's using the things that broke us down to build us up. It's on the same like spectrum, but it's just on opposite ends. The next one is from scarcity standpoint is somebody who's not contributing, they're withholding. Or sometimes they're just taking. And on the opposite side, in the abundant world, there's contributors. Now, they also often get something in return for their contribution that is something they just feel good about. It doesn't mean that they have to sacrifice themselves. It's not about sacrifice. Contribution is about willingly and lovingly like doing something for the greater good, right? Because you feel a part of that. And you don't have to necessarily be told like, hey, thank you, because you feel thank you when you do it. Contribution. The next one on scarcity side, number 7, we're all the way down to number 7. We only got one more after this, is the ego. Man, the ego will often stop we go. The number of times that I've seen ego-driven people, you can get to a certain level and you can only get that far. Because at some point, you have to evolve from there, or else there is death in that. You will die alone, right? We've all heard this before, right? On the flip side, on the world of abundance, is purpose. The purpose-driven person. The purpose takes what you're doing, and puts that in front of you, right? And so that can mean a group, but bottom line, it's bigger than you. It's purpose, right? And a lot of us struggle with finding our purpose, especially at a young age. It's very difficult. That's why it's so important as a coach at the beginning of the season to say, this is what our purpose is as a team. What's your individual purpose? How are you going to contribute? Like, what are the rules here? What are the guidelines? What can you expect of me? What can I expect of you? What are we going to do? How are we going to celebrate it? How can you tell when you're being successful? How is the feedback system going to work? This is important if you're on purpose. Now, the last one on each side is going to be probably the one where everybody's like, oh yeah, this is one where I get hung up. And it is outcome on the side of scarcity and process on the side of abundance. If you love what you're doing, you actually love what you're doing. That's literally self-evident, right? I love my job. I will show up early. I will stay late, not because it's a sacrifice, but because I love the game. I love the process. I love the people, right? There are parts of it though, like I don't love cleaning the toilet bowl. I just don't. But I do enjoy the toilet bowl being cleaned. I do enjoy other people enjoying that they can trust that that is going to be something that's done. So, and at the end of the day, do I love cleaning the toilet bowl? I guess I do. Because I do enjoy that outcome. There's no guarantee of that outcome. There's no guarantee. And that's the thing. Fear will get you into a spiral like a flat spin in Top Gun heading out to sea that you can no longer control on the joystick because you don't get to decide the outcome. You might get hurt. You might have a bad fall. You might have a bad call. You might fill in the blank. There might be something or someone to blame, including yourself, as to why it didn't happen. So why bother being hung up on the outcome when you can actually enjoy that anticipated outcome right now in the moment? It's not about delaying gratification. It's about understanding that you should feel gratification in doing the thing, working towards it, because you're going to spend way more time working towards it than you're going to achieving it. Getting your hand raised in wrestling or being on the top of the scoreboard at the end of a game lasts for a moment. You know what lasts for a lot longer than a moment? The actual process, the actual mother-loving process. So are you on board with the process or not? So let's recap all of these really quick. On the scarcity side, here's what we got for the top 8. We've got fear. We've got the finite game. We got being exclusive. We got isolation. We got failure. We got withholding or not contributing. We've got ego-driven and we've got outcome. On the abundance side, we've got faith. We've got the infinite game. We've got inclusiveness. We've got connection and community. We've got growth. We've got contribution. We've got purpose-driven, and we've got the process. We're not here to delay gratification. We're actually here to enliven it. We're here to understand that doing the thing and getting better at the thing are not mutually exclusive. And I don't have to beat up my opponent in order to win. And I also don't have to be an opponent that gets beat up in order to win. I might not win, but if I get better and I recognize that and I move forward and we celebrate the fact that it is something that we do better together, it's going to be better forever. I think one of the people that I've learned this the most from is one of my good friends, and his son is on the defending national champion team, and they probably should win again, and he's a starter, and he really enjoys what he's doing, and he really enjoys it as a parent, and his child really enjoys being on the team, and they practice really, really hard. And I'm sure he's gone through a ton of pain, but that doesn't mean he hasn't gone through an awful lot of good times and joy and feeling proud at the end of a thing. And yes, that is the ego for a moment, but at the same time, you know that you're part of something bigger than yourself. So one side works with the other. And it's kind of a give and take, and it's a balance, and it's knowing when to be here and when to be there. And it's knowing that you're bigger than this. We're bigger than this. The idea of sports is to learn through competition and gain confidence and competence and to be able to understand how you can get that going and to get that flow and to understand that you can create momentum and leverage. And this can be something that can be with you in all areas of your life. You're out there because this is a practice field, not a battlefield. This is a practice field. Very rarely in the course of sports do we have fatalities. Thank God, or thank the universe, or whatever you're thinking. Mother Earth. It's not a battlefield, right? It's a practice field. And it's a great place to celebrate competition and things that people have worked hard for. And I'm grateful every moment for it. And I hope that you found what I share really, really helpful. That you don't make the same mistakes in the learning process that I made as many times as I made them to get onto the other side of some of those things. And there's still so many things that we're learning. And I'm so grateful for all the things that we get shared on a daily basis with parents and coaches and athletes and trainers with all their successes. And sometimes they share their failures, because when they do share their failures, they're sharing the fact that they're growing from it. And that makes us better together.